Welcome everyone to the Saturday Warhammer War Room stream. We did it. We made it.
Let's roll some dice.
Yes, and I'm very excited to welcome my special guest, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Hello. How are you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
Better than awful.
Yes. I got a little bit of sleep last night, more than usual, but that's not a lot still. but I'll take it. So on this stream, we typically run down any news and announcements that have been going on in the Games Workshop Warhammer world. We talk about things that are going on in sort of the broader hobby and the hobby spheres, and then we go through miniatures and what you've been up to and what you're doing. And I'm really excited to get into it. Why don't you, at the start here, give us just a little bit of overview of who you are, in case there are people here who don't know you, and what you're into.
Sure. My name is Scott White. I otherwise known in many circles as Professor RPG. I host a RPG podcast called RPG University, where every other week I sit down with a guest to talk about a RPG that we both love. That can be Western RPGs, tabletop RPGs, Japanese role-playing games, all sorts of things. Had all sorts of people on. I've had David Brevik, creator of Diablo, on. I've had our mutual friend Jessica Lynn Verdi. She's been on when talking about her time on Rat Queen, so that was a lot of fun. But outside of that, I also write for a website, irrationalpassions.com, and I, up until the acquisition, wrote for Dual Shockers as well, and do freelance graphic design, overlay work, all sorts of stuff on the side. Big RPG fan, as I'm guessing you could tell. I absolutely love Dungeons and Dragons is my main thing. I also play like Magic the Gathering. I'm a big fan of that. Been playing that for years. And in terms of all my hobbies, Warhammer is the one that I want to play the most, but I can't play. Like, I play the least, just because so difficult, especially in the pandemic, to play Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, you've got your fingers in a lot of different pies, a lot of different parts of a larger gaming hobby. That's cool.
I'm a super nerd.
Which, hey, you're in good company here. Are you excited or otherwise for the Warhammer 40K Magic the Gathering?
Yes.
Okay.
Warhammer 40K Magic the Gathering. I don't know if I'm like do you mean like the miniature Magic game? Or
no? Okay, so maybe you haven't heard. So this was announced 2.5 weeks ago or so, but Magic the Gathering is going to have an actual Warhammer 40K commander deck, something. Like, it's actually 40K in Magic the Gathering.
MTG 40K. I know they've been doing like the crossover and everything, like special blocks.
Yeah.
But that is very cool. I had not seen that. Makes sense. It's two monoliths going head to head. I'll have to get all of them.
Right. And I figured, whatever the Venn diagram is of Magic the Gathering people and Warhammer people, wherever they meet, it's going to be a lot of cash being changed.
Oh yeah, and damn, I will have. This will be a great way to introduce all my Warhammer friends to Magic as well. So
right, and back and forth,
back and forth.
You know, we don't know a lot of details about it yet. But we talked about this a little bit on the stream last week, but I assume the first thing is going to be Ultramarines, and then hopefully we'll get other factions as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like, what do you think? Who would you associate? I don't know if you play much Magic, but what race would you associate with which color? I guess.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not really a Magic person. Yeah, but this could be my
there you go.
My introduction, my foray into Magic. Who knows?
I feel like Orcs will be red because both are really fast.
Okay. And yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Orcs like red. Black
Necrons,
is like
Necrons or Chaos. I feel like Necrons feel more black because black black is more about resurrection and bringing creatures back from the graveyard, which is very much a Necron thing. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, and I've talked a lot about how over the last I don't know 5 years or so, Games Workshop has really opened up to licensing their big IPs out to other things, whether it's just merchandise and crap like that, to toys, to games. We've seen 40K now in, I mean, obviously Monopoly and Munchkin and things like that. So it's spreading out for sure.
I'd be fine if they were a bit more selective in their video games.
Right.
Because I feel like I get a new Warhammer 40K or Warhammer fantasy game like every couple months, and they're usually budget titles, and be a bit more selective, add a bit more polish, and go. Or just make a digital version of the tabletop war game.
Sure. Yeah. Solkatsu. Yeah, we were just mentioning the Magic the Gathering announcement and what that's going to be, what all of that's going to be like. It'll certainly be interesting, if nothing else.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Now, as far as Warhammer goes, Scott, do you? So I know you play 40K. Do you play fantasy, or have you?
I have not. No.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. Hello, Erdensk. Welcome to everybody who's dropping in. Okay, I'm going to add my share screen, which is this one.
How much?
Sure.
I'm guessing you've also played fantasy then?
I dabble. So I never played actual Warhammer Fantasy, but when it changed over to Age of Sigmar a bunch of years ago now, that's not that recent anymore. I have a small Caradron Overlords Age of Sigmar army. So they're the power armor dwarves in airships with guns in fantasy.
Hell yeah.
I kind of like their aesthetic. All of the characters are fully armored head to toe. Part of their society strictures is that they never have any exposed skin. So they've got like armor with like Baroque beards as part of their armor, which is interesting. And sometimes some of their beards have actually guns in the beards, which is cool. So they have beard guns. And like none of that stuff is painted, but it's around. I've only played. I think I've only actually played it twice, but I like the models. So
that sounds cool. Sounds like a cool race to play. I did play some of the old fantasy Warhammer MMO. I did play that, which is totally different. I was a sword singer. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, cool. Solkatu says, my friend was speculating it might also mean Lord of the Rings and or 40K D&D products. Interesting. I mean, Hasbro, the toy company, for those of you who don't know, Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast, which obviously makes Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, and a bunch of other things. But Hasbro especially loves to, if they get something, they want to dip it into every single category they own. Oh yeah. So yeah, it could be, we could see stuff like that. Also related, not specifically to our 40K stream, but WizKids does the miniatures now. For a while, have been doing for Dungeons and Dragons, and they just started doing miniatures for Magic the Gathering also. Obviously, Magic the Gathering you don't need miniatures, but they're making miniatures out of the creatures and characters from Magic. But they just announced a couple weeks ago that they're expanding what they're going to do for D&D and Magic the Gathering. And hidden way at the bottom is that WizKids, who makes miniatures, they're going to be making Dungeons and Dragons action figures. So I'm very interested to see what that's going to be. We have no details whatsoever. But yeah, who knows? Hasbro did make the Drizzt action figure, which seemed like it might kick off a new series of action figures, but nothing ever came of it. So who knows? I have that. Oh, it's up there. I think you can see it. But yeah. Okay, so back to actual Warhammer. So we're going to go through some of the announcements over the last week, and then I'm very excited to talk with Scott about Grey Knights.
Yes.
Because if you've been watching this channel, we haven't really talked about Grey Knights very much. It's not a faction that I know. I know sort of a lot of the history of the Grey Knights. I don't know as much about the current state of Grey Knights. So
for what it's worth, Games Workshop isn't really talking about Grey Knights either.
Yeah. Eventually, eventually they'll get back to. Well, and we'll talk. We'll go through the news first, but then we'll talk about it. Yeah, and I have a little thing I talk about. The Grey Knights players are a certain type of breed. Let's put it that way. So we'll get to that. Man, Homeless Stone, I would kill for an Emperor's Children Codex, but thus far they haven't given it to us. Okay, so coming up very soon is this Piety and Pain box. Games Workshop previewed this a while ago. It's one of those things where we've just sort of been waiting for it. And it is, of course, the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle against the Drukhari. So perfect timing, right? Because we've got a ton of Dark Eldar stuff coming in the next couple months with the Codex. And then I'm sure we'll be getting some other new models. They haven't announced all of it yet. But they just did this kind of silly little article just previewing the box mainly and saying, hey, there's this new model in it. So on the Sisters of Battle side, you get the new Palatine, which is essentially a lieutenant for the Sisters of Battle. She lets friendly nearby characters reroll ones for wound rolls. So that's exciting. And they do this funny thing where they're like, okay, we're going to put her up against Lelith Hesperax. And Lelith Hesperax, if you are familiar with the Dark Eldar and her rules, she can kill just about anything in the game in melee. So there's no Sisters of Battle character that could even stand one round of combat with her. But sure, for the sake of this article, it's fine.
Damn.
Yeah, it's she's brutal. Okay, so that was just a silly little preview. They've talked about. Oh no, I don't want cookie settings. Okay, so this is, if you haven't been there lately, this is the new Warhammer 40K sort of introductory site, and they've done a lot of work on it, and it's pretty rad. So it has this new as of a few months ago, this animation that's essentially it's Space Marines and Sisters of Battle and Guard fighting against Necrons, and it's super swanky. There are some Warhammer nerds who are really excited about this because it's the first time in anything animated we've seen certain weapons fire, and so we got to hear what they sound like, and that was a big deal to some people. They're like, oh, finally, I know what a Goss Flayer sounds like. So I guess when you're playing, you could make the right pew pew noise, I suppose. But that was a big deal for some people. But anyway, it breaks down like, okay, what's the game? Here's the introduction. But the cool part, and all of these like how to play videos that are actually really well done, free core rules. Oh, my computer wants to start. No, I don't want that open. But the neat thing is they've added, so they have these breakdowns of the different factions, and it's introductory. You don't get a ton of information, but it is handy. But they've added further, if you keep going down, sub factions for most of the factions, and it's like it just gives you so much more information and an example of what a model look like. And then, of course, there's always a link so you can go in an actual shop and buy these things. And then explore the galaxy and just interactive maps. So if you're interested in Warhammer 40K and you're not super familiar with it, you can actually do a lot on this website now and get a good sense of what everything is.
Yeah, this is very cool.
Yeah, and this was, like I said, a lot of these updates came just a couple weeks ago. They added a lot of the sub-faction stuff. So I recommend it. Even for experienced people, very few of us know about every single faction and the exact timeline of where everything's going in the overall story of 40K. And there is generally an overall story. So you can check that out. The big model announcement this past week was Bellacor. And as they put it, Bellacore's back, and oh wow, he's enormous. Super goofy, but it's appropriate. So Bellacor is a demon prince, and he's like the first and biggest and most powerful demon prince. And this model is amazing. So anybody who plays
change with the the chains with the skulls. That's a good
Mm-hmm.
touch.
Yeah, and he's just dripping with details. This thing is he's huge, and this is one of those cool because it's chaos. This is really cool because you can play this in both Age of Sigmar and 40k. So if you're thinking about starting, if you play one game and you're thinking about starting an army for the other game, well, hey, look, it's built in if you play chaos. And so you'll notice, so this is the Age of Sigmar version, and you see down at the bottom there's like a chaos warrior down there at his feet, and then the alternate, so basically how you build this for 40k instead is down here, and there's a Primaris lieutenant at his feet. Poor guy, who's like dissolving into the warp, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that model is, I mean, it's definitely going to be probably $150, I would guess. Oh, and there's also a little Space Marine helmet that's hanging off of one of these chains. That's cool.
Oh, so there is. That's nifty.
So a little bit more detail to differentiate which one is the fantasy and which one is the future version. So Bellacore's coming. He'll be out in a few, probably in a couple months, if I would guess, based on the current timeline and how things get delayed here and there. If you have kids, or if you are interested in more young adult types of stories, and I know lots of adults read and listen to young adult things, Games Workshop has been putting out these Warhammer Adventures stories for the last couple of years. And there's a line for 40k and a line for Age of Sigmar. And they just announced that these are ending. And that is interesting because, there's going to be 5 books total in each series. And when these first started coming out, and Scott, I don't know if you heard about this or if you were online with the community at the time when these were announced, but this was, sadly, this was a big deal for a lot of the hardcore, long-time Warhammer people because they freaked out. Oh my God, Games Workshop is turning this into a kid's property. How in the world? My models are going to be useless. The game is going to be kidified. The sky is falling. Typical crap like that.
As the internet does.
Yes. Clearly we've gotten, since these books have started, we've gotten the new range of Slanesh demon stuff that's been, that has breasts and some exposed nipples and things like that, and certainly plenty of violence and everything. So I think that was unfounded, to put it mildly, this knee-jerk reaction. Now, from the other point of view, you could say, are these, even if it's toned down violence and xenophobia and fascism and everything else that is in Warhammer, are these appropriate for children? And that's a different question. Even if it's toned down, how do you read these sorts of things? We did get the first book of the 40k version. I did buy it, and then I started to read it to my son. It's just slightly more mature than he's ready for at this point, only because it's pretty violent. People are dying left and right in it, which is, I mean, most kids' properties do involve death anyway, so that's not completely out of the realms of of what's appropriate, but it's pretty violent.
Yeah, I would be, truthfully though, I would be interested to see how they would kidify Warhammer, like the tone of Warhammer 40k. Like, it's not genocide, we're just spreading hugs, or
right,
just Fortniteify it. That's how I know Warhammer. I'm just waiting for Fortnite to drop in like a Space Marine.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it could happen. They have almost every other property in that game by now.
It's only a matter of time.
It's all right. It's not. It's just like with Funko Pops. It's not an if. It's a when.
Yep. Exactly.
So these are ending, and they haven't announced if there's anything that's going to replace these. If they'll start up like a new series after this that'll be similar. But yeah, they're pretty brutal. They're young adult. It's a lot of like growing up and coming of age types of stories in here. But yeah, and then for also one reason why these have been popular with adults as well is that while they are for a younger audience, they're well written. but they have an incredible team of voice actors to do the audiobooks. Specifically, David Tennant and Billy Piper, who most of you will know from Doctor Who. So you can listen to these as well.
Who do they play? I instantly want to listen to them now because of the two of them.
Right. Well, I think David Tennant does the narration for the 40K books, and Billy does the Age of Sigmar books. I think.
Okay.
I think that's how it is. Yes. So actually, let me drop down to the bottom here. So last week this came out, the Kill Team Pariah Nexus box, and to say that this was a little bit contentious among the community is to put it mildly. So this box is $150 odd, and you got 12 models in it. 12 brand new models that you can't get any other way for Space Marines and Necrons, the two most popular factions right now. Infuriating is one word for it.
But Scott, Space Marines never get anything new. They are always untouched forever.
Right. A good point. But these were models, especially on the Space Marine side. These were models that were teased literally months ago, and we've had the data sheets for them, and people have designed and built armies around them, just waiting to get their hands on the actual models. So it was kind of a gut punch to find out that this is the only way to get them, at least initially. And again, it's not unheard of that new models will come first in some sort of a larger boxed set, but usually it's not quite as restrictive as this one. Not everybody who plays 40K plays Kill Team. There's a bunch of components in this box that if you are not a big fan of Kill Team and you want to try something new, it's kind of useless. So I don't know. Currently the website is showing that this box that they've sold out, at least in the first run. I kind of wonder if that's actually true, because a lot of people were basically saying, no, I'm not going to buy this. I'm going to wait till these models come out individually. And possibly because of that, hey, guess what? These models are coming out individually.
Whoa,
very soon.
That one coming. No way.
Yeah. Somehow, actually, a week ago, a Games Workshop store in Germany got a Heavy Intercessors box. These things like randomly show up sometimes. I also, when that happens, I wonder, is it a plant? Did they, is this a marketing scheme? Oh, we're gonna ship one somewhere and then have them take a picture. Oh, I don't know exactly what the store name is, but it was definitely in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know beyond that. But yeah, now there is a specific character. Well, like the captain basically for the Space Marines, and then what is it, a Chronomancer for the Necrons? So they haven't announced when those are coming out individually, but it'll probably be soon because again, everybody wants these dang models. But we're going to get them, and it won't be too long from now. And then the big news this week is the Warhammer Animations team. So there's always been people making their own. Oh, Mexican Robin. I'm sorry to hear that. I wonder what happened. Send me a message if it's anything I can do to help out or figure out what it did. So there's always been people making their own Warhammer animations, and on YouTube there's a ton of them. Some of them are great, like Astartes. Some of them are okay, like the Hell's Reach stuff. Some of them are just garbage. But there's always that. There's always the worry, like, is Games Workshop going to come after us and send a cease and desist? On the flip side, there's always that, like, mythical dream: is Games Workshop going to reach out and make it official and bring me aboard? And the latter actually happened. And it's a really interesting start to a conversation. So if you're not familiar with it, Astartes is an animation series made by a guy named, what is his name? Sayama Peterson. I don't know where he is located in the world. It's a very interesting name. But he is an animator, a 3D artist, you name it. But he created this series of animation that's 5 episodes, and oh yeah, Mexican Robin, send me a message afterward, and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on with that. Yeah. So anyway, he's located in the warp. He might be. So anyway, he created this animation. It's Space Marines attacking a ship with these weird like cultist guys, and it is unbelievably fantastic. Like I said, it was 5 episodes. It came out online last year over a span of a bunch of months. And this guy, Sayama, he did everything himself. Sound design, created the models, animated the models, did the effects, just everything. It's an unbelievable amount of work. And technically it's fantastic as well. So he made this whole thing, and everybody obviously is always worried, is Game Workshop going to shut this down, blah, blah, blah. And lo and behold, this past week they announced that Games Workshop, in fact, partnered with Sayama, and Astartes is now it's off of YouTube, so you can't watch it there anymore, but it is officially on the Warhammer website where you can watch it there. Now, they changed it a little bit. They added some music. They changed a couple of the sound effects. They didn't change overall the content of it, but a little bit here and there. It's also not the version they put up is not quite as good quality as you could watch it on YouTube, which super bothers people. But then what was really interesting is it spawned this huge conversation or shouting match among fans about if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Now, in theory, they're paying Sayama something. He's working. They've announced that he's working with Games Workshop on new animation that again will be official through Games Workshop. But I have to wonder, in a case like this, did they? Some people are like, "Oh, he must be getting tons of money," and I'm like, "Tons of money? I don't know about that. I wonder if it's more the case of you can either cease and desist or you can work for us." And they may have held him over a barrel a little bit. But it's cool. At least now, more people will get to see it, and it'll be a little bit more visible for a lot of people. But they did also preview another. I mean, they have a bunch of projects in the development, but there's this new animation called the Exodite. I'm going to play this. I know the audio is not going to come through. I can't, for the life of me, I can't figure out how to share audio across different screens. But this is the Exodite. And I know you'll have questions, so stick with me till the end. Can I make it big? Will that work? Can you still see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we got spaceships. We have a Kroot war sphere. We have all sorts of neat technology. More spaceships. Whatever that thing is. A stealth suit. So yeah, this thing first of all, again, the production value is fantastic. Stay tuned. Okay. It looks great. Tau fans are super excited because we don't often get Tau stuff outside of just the models and the books. Welcome, Darrow, and everybody else who is just joining us. But the main question is, why is it called the Exodite? Because that's an Eldar thing. If you remember when a few weeks ago when we talked about, we did a deep dive into the Eldari and the Eldar, and the Exodites are basically they're the Eldar who they saw what was coming, the bad stuff that was happening with the Eldar and how decadent and depraved everybody was getting. So they're like, okay, we're going to leave all that crap behind. They went to sort of these older, they went to go live their peaceful lives on far-flung planets. And these are the ones who found dinosaurs. And at least in the old artwork, they ride dinosaurs into battle, like dino riders. There are no models for any of these things. There aren't even rules for most of it. But But yes, those are the Exodites. So if this thing is called the Exodite, we may finally see Tau meeting Eldar and what that's going to look like, and we may see dinosaurs and all this other cool stuff. So obviously we'll keep track of that and talk about it when we hear more about it. But yeah, that's so that sort of brings us up to all the news that's been coming out lately. So Scott, why don't you tell us, what was your first introduction to Warhammer?
Sure. So my first introduction to Warhammer was my older brother years and years ago. He played a little bit, and I remember him having Space Marines. But I don't remember ever seeing him really play. I just remember the model kits. And then probably about 10 or so years ago now, I have a close group of some of my closest friends. They really got into Warhammer. So when I would go over and hang out with them, I'd see them play. They would let me use an army. And that's when I first really played them. And wanting to get in and kind of get my own army, I started looking up and I got really interested in the Grey Knights. I love kind of the idea behind them, that they're this super elite force that is like still kind of a myth. Like no one really knows if they're just like the boogeymen or not. And I'm a big fan of like Arthurian legend, knights clad in armor with really cool swords and hammers and stuff. So I had voiced my interest in the Grey Knights. So one Christmas, probably 6 or so years ago now, that same group of friends went in and bought me 2 strike squads and a paladin set, like just my beginner Grey Knight set. And
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was really when I got first introduced, and since then I haven't been able to play as much as I would like to. And strangely, out of all my hobbies, I get more anxious and stressed with Warhammer than anything else. And it's not like by playing the game or anything. It's because of the building the models, like picking the armaments for each of the models and gluing them on. And it's like that concept of permanence is like, okay,
yeah,
this box of models was like $60.
Yep.
What am I going to put on them and glue on and then call it good for like ever? And I know you can give it a model, like unglue weapons. It doesn't
yeah.
And it's like, even with the super small models, like the paladins or like the strike teams or the purifiers and stuff, they're not big models. So it's like, I'm not good enough to start doing magnets. Like, can't do it. Not even going to try. I will end up burning more money than I would find worth it. So it was just, I have a few models, 5 models that are just like Purifier, like the smaller units that just have arms, legs, but no weapons or gear attached to them because I couldn't make a decision.
Sure.
But now that I'm working more and I have a stable job, it's not like if I need to, I can just buy a paladin squad and be like, okay, all these guys will be just standard bolters force sword. Be like, I can just have a bunch of those, and then I can buy another set if I need to. Okay, you're gonna have flamers, right? Yeah. But up until then, it's like I don't want to commit. It scares me because there's so much money. And I get stressed out. I love playing, but building things and making that decision has got me a lot of rolled eyes and laughed at by my friends who play Warhammer 40K. Okay, no,
I can certainly understand that. I'm a bit more like that for the painting aspect. Now you have it a little bit easier, mostly with Grey Knights, because there's definitely
silver. There's a lot of silver.
There's definitely like, here's what Grey Knights look like. Do this. You can get with Grey Knights, you can get away with a lot of, I don't want to say simple, but like straightforward. Spray everything silver. Start adding some details. Like you can.
Right.
I think so that definitely helps. Now, of course, you can go super crazy in depth with your paint jobs. You could do it all in non-metallic metal and make all these crazy, beautiful things. But but yeah, for me, when it's the painting that I get crippled by anxiety of like, are these the exact right colors do I want? I got to paint an entire army this way. Am I going to like these colors in a year from now? Yeah, all of that stuff. Building, the building part is actually what I like the most about this hobby. I love building models, and typically. Well, yeah, but I certainly understand what you're talking about like, oh my god, what weapon do I put on? What weapon do I want to put on? I have magnetized a couple of vehicles, and that's as far as I've
those
gone.
are like fine. Like I'm building a Nemesis Dreadnought right now, and it's like those have much bigger joints, so I can score it and hollow out a portion to put in a really nice magnet to swap out the weapons. But when they're just like inch tall, it's like, oh god.
Yeah, and I've seen. I don't know if I actually know any people in real life, but I've seen online that for those of you who are wondering, so like a model this big, people will magnets. Obviously, this one, not this one because it's like just a 2-part. But yeah, they'll cut off the hands and they'll put magnets in here so you can swap out different. And that's just crazy. That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
When it comes to stuff like that, I definitely fall more under the rule of cool. And I know that look, I like Warhammer, but I know I'm never going to play in a competitive tournament where something like that is really going to matter. I know that any game I ever play is going to be at the level of, hey, look, this model has a bolter, but he actually has a flamer. We understand that. It's on my list. Okay, cool. Let's go. So I'm totally a rule of cool guy when it comes to what actually goes on the model.
Yeah, and my friends are very much that same way. We get together, we have a few drinks, and we just play for an entire weekend kind of thing. It's very chill, so it's more of a stress I put on myself for sure, and not them. But I can't even imagine if I played like a race, like a Space Marine or a Tau that had different divisions or like colored clans and things. It's like now they all have to match. Oh, what if I don't want that group? Oh my god, what's gonna happen? And with Grey Knights, for those of you who haven't played, you don't get many units.
Right.
Everything is very expensive. They hit very hard, but you don't get many. So that just adds to my, oh god, what am I going to put on? Do I want a Force Halberd? Do I want Falchions? Do I want a Flamer or a Psi Cannon? Oh my god, what am I going to do? But I absolutely love to play. And I've had this theory. It's been one of these ideas I've had in kind of the back of my head, just rolling around, is I want to make a guide where you could use Lego people instead. Just get the little inch bases or the Terminator like 1.5 bases.
Yeah.
And just do little Lego people just to try out an army. Be like, I want to do that. If I want to have like a gun, just attach one of their little generic guns or whatever.
Sure, like pop out different weapons. Yeah.
Right. And then from there, I know this is kind of the makeup I want to do. It's committing without committing tons of money and letting you kind of plan out. It's like playing with proxies with Magic, I feel.
Right. Well, now I will ask, have you, during this pandemic time when we're all separated and it's not as easy to play these kinds of things, have you done any tabletop simulator?
I bought a few of my friends in that same group Tabletop Simulator with the sole goal of playing Warhammer with them on Tabletop Simulator, and we have never played Tabletop Simulator Warhammer.
I'm in a very similar boat. I have actually a lot of my friends are on there playing. Friends, just like local friends. Friends from Hyper RPG that we used to do the big show together. I'm at this point, I think I'm like one of the few people who hasn't actually gone on and do it. I have it. I've loaded up all the stuff into it. I just have not found the time to sit and dedicate like a block of hours where I can really learn how it works and then sign on and play with somebody. Yeah, I love the idea of it, and I think it goes a lot to what you were saying about trying out armies. That up until now, up until Tabletop Simulator, unless you wanted to go a Lego route where you'd have to really like categorize, okay, what does this mean, and keep track of everything. There wasn't really a way to try out armies unless you had friends who had all these armies. And I think Tabletop Simulator is going to be great for people who want to do that, because you can just. I've never played Tau, and I don't really have a burning desire to start buying Tau models, but I'd like to see how they play. I'll load that up one day and try those out on a computer.
Right. I love Tabletop Simulator. I played it for like board games and card games, and I absolutely love it. And I was the one that was like, we really should play on Tabletop Simulator, specifically because of the pandemic and everything and whatnot. But it's just those blasted friends being busy with adult responsibilities like kids and jobs and whatnot, man.
It does happen, unfortunately.
Yes, it does. But yeah, it's strange to me, and I'm going to be curious to see if we see it in the next couple of years in a post-pandemic world, if Games Workshop will release some sort of a digital tabletop client. They already have the codexes and handbooks and stuff that you can get on your phone in a digital format.
Yeah.
Why not do kind of the Magic Arena route or something? Have a digital Warhammer tabletop game. Sell pack. You can still sell packs of Marines and everything. Kind of do sort of like a Hero Forge kind of miniature building thing where you could have and swap the parts in your model kits, color them how you want, and then just use them that way. It seems like such a smart move, and in a pre-pandemic world, Games Workshop, I guess, really didn't need to worry about a digital version of Warhammer, whereas now with Games Workshops being closed, with people not being able to hang out, I wonder how much this has really impacted them.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder too, like, obviously Games Workshop is a big enough company and they have divisions who do all of these different things. I have to wonder if it's a matter of them figuring out, how can we best monetize this? How can we draw out the most money out of a project like this?
Maybe, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like they already have the pricing structure. Just do digital versions of the same kits that you have. Like, you have X amount of tokens to build a unit. And then each token you use will send you to a Hero Forge like model creator.
And then you can put everything together.
Where you will fit out with the specific things. And then if they want to further nickel and dime people, give like a reset token where if you use one, you can like re-kit out a unit for a far cheaper price. But $1 and you can re-kit out 3 units or something. Yeah,
and then like if a new model comes out, obviously you have to pay to get the new models, right? It's not free upgrades. Actually, what would be really cool in something like that is if there was a built-in way where obviously you'd have to pay more, but pay to export whatever you've built as an STL. Yeah. Although then you get into the whole thing of, well, Games Workshop has said they'd never get into any sort of 3D printing in that world at all. But yeah, maybe this would be the way to do it. Is like, okay, if you are making official approved models within their system, then we'll let you pay to be able to print them out yourself. Yeah. Or even if they want to be more like not secretive, but more have control over it, be like, pay X amount, we will send your kits or whatever to a shop that we trust or our own print shop, and then we will mail you the boxes. Like they used to do with the old White Dwarf magazines, where you would order specific parts or specific armies or models, and then they would just mail them to you. Yeah, more like the Shapeways kind of thing, where like they've got a clearinghouse where hey, that sounds good. Write them a letter. I will. It's like, hey, dear Games Workshops, want to write more or want to make more money? Here's how. Yeah, I'm a prince from Egypt, and I've just come into $5 million. Would this help you? I would like to buy all of your Space Marines. Yes, that $5 million would get me roughly half an army, roughly half their models. But it's so silly to me that there isn't a accurate digital way to play Warhammer 40K. Yeah. In 2021. Yeah. Although, I mean, while Games Workshop has had some great they've done some great things, especially like with their Age of Sigmar app, which I know
Mm-hmm.
is a really good comprehensive app. The rollout of their 40K app was absolutely abysmal. That thing was
Yeah.
it was trash. There were so many problems with it. It's been months now, and it's slightly better, but the way you also have to pay for things is garbage. So I don't know. They I guess they need the right members of the right teams to get all this for it to
Mm-hmm.
work out. But who knows?
This is a bit of a long shot, I think, but I could see the Warhammer 40K MTG kind of crossover event being
Hmm.
Hasbro scouting to see the interest of
Ooh.
maybe buying Games Workshop. I could see within like
Okay.
5-10 years Hasbro dropping the money and getting Games Workshop.
Wow. That would be really interesting. And yeah, I mean, there's toy companies. They have a lot of money, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was only a few years ago that there were all of the. I mean, I think they've been substantiated at this point, but that the rumors that Disney was looking to buy Hasbro, and Hasbro was big enough to say no thanks, and it's like at that level, yeah,
Yeah.
they could make some power moves like that for sure.
Hasbro is becoming the Disney of toys, I feel like they're
Yeah.
just buying up everything they can. I mean, they have Power Rangers now, they have
Mhm.
Transformers, they have Wizards of the Coast and all of the Dungeons and Dragons Wizards of the Coast or MTG properties. Having really two strong war tabletop miniature games under their belt too. I feel like, and they have the digital infrastructure in place where they could be like,
Oh, for
okay,
sure. Yeah.
how about we buy you, and then a year
Yeah.
after it's like, here is Magic Arena but Warhammer 40K
Oh,
where you can
Warhammer,
play.
yeah. Hey, it could happen. And we know Joe Starr, who works now, was one of the people in charge of D&D Beyond, so we could get that word in there and start sending it up the ladder.
It will be interesting, and if Magic the Gathering is doing a crossover with 40K, I could definitely see an Age of Sig module or a book for D&D.
Yeah, that's true. Wow.
Because they've done the Magic, the Guilds of Ravnica and stuff in D&D.
Yeah. The the crossover potentials are endless.
Yeah.
then we'll get and down the line we'll get Transformers in 40K, and oh man, can you think about that?
Nemesis Dread Knight versus, or give me that demon against a Megazord from Power Rangers. Sign me up, man.
When they first melded Transformers and Star Wars, not in a lore capability, but when they did the toys, can you imagine if we got a line of Warhammer vehicle toys that transformed into like robotic versions of the humanoids from those races? That would be really cool.
I would
like a
want,
land.
I would want one of the orc carriers where it transforms into Wogbot.
There you go.
Wogbot.
Sure. I'm thinking a Land Raider that turns into a Terminator for sure. Like that writes itself. And then you can have a Rhino that turns into a Space Marine. All the new Primaris vehicles.
Yeah.
Wow, that could really be something.
It's just you have to keep this episode on the down low, Scott, because we are giving them way too much good ideas that will net them millions upon millions of dollars.
Yeah. So let's talk about these cool gray people. And yes, for all of those who are watching, many of you are in the United States. Not all of you. Some of you are in different places around the world. But these are Grey Knights, Grey. They're gray because they're British, and they're gray no matter where you play. Although it's funny, I have seen some Americans write these as gray with Gray, and I'm like, look, I like gray with an A as much as the next person, but these are gray with an E. That's their name. Like, don't change that. I know it's silly, but I actually saw somebody do that, and I was like, that's not right. Okay, so who are the Grey Knights?
So basically, the Grey Knights are this super elite of the elite sect of the Inquisition that are even rumored. Like, people think they're just rumors, like they're just myths, like boogeymen, scary fairy tales. But their bread and butter, their main thing is to deal with the biggest and baddest demon threat that face the Imperium. Like, if shit goes down, you send in with demons, you send in the Grey Knights. In essence, they were this elite back in the Horus Heresy. Melkador was picked by the Emperor himself to find the most stalwart and loyal Ultramarines across the entire Empire, and he eventually came back to the Emperor with 8 Space Marines that he handpicked and, in essence, tortured just to make sure they were devoted body and soul to the Emperor. And these were the founding members of the Grey Knight Order. Malcador called them the Titans. And that was about 10,000 years or esque ago. And since then, basically, the long and short of it is the Grey Knights are the most incorruptible badasses of the Empire. There's not many of them. They are like the elite of the elite of the elite.
Yeah.
And they are tested and put through a bunch of things to make sure that they make the snuff. They're pretty much all psychers, so they can all use abilities, psychic abilities. But then they're decked out in badass silver, like ancient ultramarine armor. Most of them walk around in Terminator armor. But yeah, they're pretty damn awesome.
Yeah. Now, have you read much of the Horus Heresy novels?
I haven't. The past couple weeks after we talked, I have been looking into doing more of a lore deep dive into the Grey Knights.
Okay.
Because I was always more coming from, these guys are really cool. I want to play them because I like the idea of them.
Sure.
I like what they look like and kind of their idea. But no, reading into kind of how they were sent off with, like how Malcador sought out and found all the other the other 8, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I've read just about all of the Horus Heresy, and I'm current with it. There were a couple books I skipped along the way, but I've read most of them, and it was really interesting reading those books and having sort of the very early origins of the Grey Knight start, because I didn't even realize what it was at the time I was reading it. I didn't know that that's where that storyline was going. Because Malcador just kind of talks to this person off in the corner, and then he talks to somebody else, and like, what's going on here? But they're starting the Grey Knights. But yeah, it's really interesting because not only did he seek out psychers from a bunch of different legions, but he also got at least one main character who at the time was not a psyker, but then many books later, we're talking like 50 books later, he actually in the heat of battle starts doing some psychic stuff, which is kind of cool. Like, he was a latent psychic that, of course, Malcador knew. He knows everything. But I can't
remember which one it. Yeah, I can't remember which one it was, but there was another that was part of a legion that was like very anti-psyker. Like, you do not use psychic abilities, and in order to save his squad that was in like an impossible mission kind of thing, he used these psychic powers that Melkador was like teaming up with him on just to try and recruit him. So the rest of the squad basically blacklisted and just like shunned their commander who had used these psychic abilities to save them. Right. And then he finally joined Malcador as one of the founding 8.
Yeah. Yeah. Because toward the beginning of the heresy, in sort of a response to some things that were going on, and partly because they were tricked, it gets really complicated. But essentially the Emperor has it's basically a court case. and it's should we still have psychers among the Space Marines? Can we trust them? Are they too powerful? Do they go rogue too often? And there's literally like witnesses stand up and the different Primarchs talk, and then he decides, no, there shall be no more psychic powers in our Space Marines. It was the Council and then the Edict of Nicaea. And to say that different legions took it in different ways is an understatement. Obviously, you have things like the Thousand Sons, who they're all psychers, and they were basically like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And then they just keep doing their own stuff. The Imperial Fists and the Ultramarines were like, yes, sir, we will never use our psychic powers again, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And even like the most powerful of their psychers, we see this with the Imperial Fists. Like they literally just lock themselves in a room and they stayed there for years, and just they lived their entire that whole period of time just meditating so they wouldn't accidentally use any psychic ability whatsoever. Pretty ridiculous. And then, of course, they find out that, like, no, we really desperately need our psychers in this war against, chaos creatures all of a sudden are coming, and then they have to, go back on their word not to use it. But yeah, that's a big deal for Space Marines, who are all about following orders and loyalty and everything else. For people who are watching and don't know all of this ancient history in Warhammer 40k, let me just give a brief note about Malkador. So the Emperor is the most powerful human psyker of all time, because he's a god. And then after him, you can kind of, I guess you can have a debate. Is the next most powerful, is it Malkador, is it Magnus? There are times when like one seems greater over the other. What would you say, Scott?
I mean, I'm going to have to go Malkador just because he's my Grey Knight boy.
Okay, and that's fair. Like I said, sometimes definitely it gives the lore gives an edge over one versus the other. But Malkador is just a human. He's not a perpetual. He's not going to live forever. He's not a Primarch. There's nothing special about his genes. He's just a human who happens to be an immensely powerful psyker. Now, because of his powers and because he has access to the best medicine and everything in the Imperium, he does end up living for a very long time, but not forever. And he acts for a very long time as he's second in command for the Emperor. He does whatever the Emperor tells him. Malkador ends up being in charge of a lot of stuff that the Emperor wants to sort of keep his hands off of. Malkador sets up the assassins. He orders tons of people on murder and suicide missions because like that's his job. He's got to take care of stuff. But yeah, so setting up the Grey Knights was one of his big secret missions. And yeah, technically they don't exist. They're in the records of the bureaucracy. They're technically classified as the 666th Space Marine chapter, which is goofy, but whatever.
They're the MIB. They're the MIB of Warhammer 40k.
Yeah, and they literally mind wipe people. They mind wipe witnesses, or more often just kill them. If anybody sees them,
that's the child dumbing down for children idea. They wipe the memories.
Yeah, it's all fine. They're
fine. They just go to sleep and they wake up and they wake back up in their bed.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's all.
And so unlike all of the other Space Marine chapters are tied to like a specific planet somewhere, or they can be a fleet chapter where they just have spaceships that fly around. But yes, the Grey Knights are on Titan, the moon of Saturn, Titan, and they have this gigantic,
super
crazy.
Fortress.
Yeah, it's a fortress, monastery. They use a whole lot of words for it, and it's shielded with technological stuff and psychic stuff, so nobody can see it. Nobody knows it's there, and yeah, they've got a bunch of cool stuff.
A lot of artifacts, a lot of relics.
Yeah, but so hey, Tiny Chris, thank you so much. I'm having a good Saturday. I hope you are as well. One of the things that becomes interesting when you talk about actually like the models and the things that you can play for Grey Knights is that yes, they are Space Marines, and they have access to some standard Space Marines things, but not everything. And there's a lot that they don't have access to. And some of it is like, but why is that? Why don't they have access to that? but it
They
is
don't
what it
need
is.
it because they're hard asses.
Right. And like, why don't they have much in the way of Horus Heresy era stuff? Like, they don't really have anything from Forge World. I think is there like one or two things they have, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas all the other Space Marines can get like loads of ancient, weapons and vehicles and things. Also, Primaris, their Primaris options are a little weird.
They don't really have Primaris options yet.
Yeah,
They're holding off.
which is weird.
So
because it seems like
that's the thing. Grey Knights in 9th edition have been a lot of the strategies around Grey Knights have been kind of nerfed.
Mm-hmm.
Going from 8th to 9th edition.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's happened with several armies, and it's basically they just need a new codex. Like as soon as they get the new codex, they'll be functional, if not good. And Magnus was not happy about Nicaea, and he was there and he talked and he gave this eloquent speech, and it's in one of the books. And then the Emperor's like, nope, sorry. And there's all this behind this. It's actually. It sounds goofy, but it is actually a really cool scene in the books because they have Primarchs there who give speeches, and then there are a bunch of other Primarchs there who are like they're hidden behind veils, so you don't actually know everybody who's there and who is getting not a vote because the Emperor just decides, but giving their opinions, their dissenting opinions. But then you find out also that there are a bunch of factions there that are doing things behind the scenes. There are word bearers there, and there are space wolves running all over the place trying to kill any spies. So it's a cool scene in the book. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's talk about what the armies and the models look like for Grey Knight. So I've got I just have the actual pages up, but if you have the models, then we can definitely look at those. Or do you want to show?
Yeah, one sec.
We can do it that way.
If you want to show a couple pictures real quick, I will make up a scene that I can that's pulled back a bit that I can show models. Okay,
sure. Yeah, I can do that. So the Grey Knights have leaders who are very, very famous and very, very powerful. And as Scott was saying, everybody in the Grey Knights, they are all psychers. Now, their psychic power sort of depends on the unit. So yes, even a standard squad of infantry does have psychic powers, but they're not in game terms. They just get to do one little pew, and that's it for psychic powers. But their leaders are all massively powerful psychers with a bunch of abilities and things of that nature. So this is the Grand Master. What is it? Grand Master? I always forget his full. Yeah. I'm sorry. He is the Supreme Grand Master. Yes, Lord Kaldor Drago, and this model it's getting a little old. he could certainly use a new version, but despite how he looks like a crumpled up old man, on the battlefield, this model is amazing. This unit, rather, and he can kill just about anything. He's really rad. So yeah, the Grey Knights have a few specific characters to their armies that are really cool. So yeah, there's Drago, there's Grandmaster Voldus, and he's got some cool stuff going on with his armor. You see a lot of Storm Bolters in this army. They and they're the cool kind that are just strapped onto their arms. They can do other things with their hands. They're not tied down like regular Space Marines with their clunky handheld bolters. No, they're better. So there's Voldus, and then there's this guy Castellan Crow. He's pretty cool.
I like to use Castellan Crow. He's my main HQ I take in with me because he has a really cool sword.
And you can see
dudes.
Yeah, and you can see there, and if you look closely on the sword, you might notice there's some eldritch sigils on the sword. And what is that logo down by his hand? Is that a Chaos Star? Dun dun dun. And so yeah, the as they fight demons, sometimes the Grey Knights have access to certain weapons and technology that they might not supposed to have.
Good thing they don't technically exist.
Right, and nobody can tell them what to do.
It's true.
But yeah, as Scott mentioned, there's a very specific point in the lore that says in the 10,000 years that these Grey Knights and their predecessors have been around, not a single one has ever succumbed to the lure, the taint of chaos. They are unblemished in that regard. So if a couple of them want to use some chaos murder weapons, we'll look the other way.
They do pretty good, so it's
Yeah.
like we'll let it happen.
They've earned it.
Yeah.
And then there's Brother Captain Stern. As a brief digression, sometimes you'll hear when we talk about Space Marines and we talk about the different ranks, you'll hear the word brother thrown around. And this is kind of interesting because on the one hand, yes, canonically, according to Games Workshop, all Space Marines have to be boys and then men. It's goofy, it's dumb. They should change it this minute. They should have changed it 20 years ago, but it is what it is. According to the lore, all Space Marines have to be men. Now, when you see the word brother, so you'll see like battle brother, you'll see brother sergeant. Here we have brother captain. That's not them being like familial with each other and like, oh, you're my brother because we're all men. It's actually brother in this case is actually a rank. So a brother sergeant is a specific type. That's a specific name of a rank, and even just like regular battle brother, because there are something below that because there are neophytes and acolytes depending on what faction you're talking about. So just a note there that the brother as part of these titles is not because they're all bros. It's a little there's a specific reason why that's there.
Though they probably are all bros because they've all gone through. This is like the super fraternity, where, granted, their hazing involved being subjugated to incredible acts of torture and abuse.
Yes. So Tiny Chris, so they established in the lore that to make a Space Marine, you have to take a boy who is on the cusp of puberty. You cut him open, you implant a bunch of extra organs in his body, and then as Scott said, you torture him through all sorts of insane hazing, both physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, just every kind of the worst torture you could put a child through. And then at the other end, they become a Space Marine. There is a garbage line in the lore that these implanted organs only work with male chromosomes. It's the dumbest thing. It's literally the dumbest thing the Games Workshop has ever done. And it's lore. They could change it today. But they haven't. And who knows? They might one day. But it's a thing. We in the community talk about this a lot. Both for and against, sadly. There are lots of people who are like, no, this is how it is. This is what was written in the lore. They pretend like the lore has never changed, even though it does all the time. And there can't be any ladies in my Space Marines. And it's garbage. So we the more enlightened part of the community frequently push back, and every chance we get ask about, okay, so when are we getting female Space Marines? Because why not?
Yeah. Pull a Jeanne d'Arc or Jeanne d'Arc kind of situation and have a lady just wear some Terminator armor and then save everything, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So then beyond like the cool leader models, and then there's a generic Grey Knight brother captain, so you can sort of make your own. Call them whatever you want. I like the pointy finger.
Yes, I've used that pointy finger many a time.
Awesome. And then there are just troops. So they have, now again, even their troops don't look like normal Space Marines. You'll see they've got the wrist-mounted Stormbolters. They've got a bunch of cool melee weapons that are not accessible to normal Space Marines, and some very interesting-looking weapons that we'll talk about here in just a minute.
This is true.
So we've got the Strike Squad, the Terminators, which were really cool. And yes, while their armor may be mostly look like other Space Marine armor. They have very distinctive helmets, and then a bunch of just like other decoration that goes on their armor. Terminators, Paladin Terminators. What was the last one I hear? Oh, and then we'll definitely talk about the Nemesis Dreadnought.
Yes,
because there's a lot to talk about there. So Scott, why don't you show us some of your models? Let me switch this to. Nope, I want this. Boop. That one. There we go.
Let me. Boop boop. Oh, that was wrong. That was the wrong capture source. Boop. Boop. Okay, so let me. Okay, so in essence, these are. Oh, I'm just going to turn off my flashlight. It's bright enough.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Grey Knights are Terminators. They love to wear their Terminator armor. So I have two squads of Grey Knights in their Terminator armors. I'm just gonna try and figure out a way to make this lit a bit better for you folks. Okay, so this is one of the ones that are most done, I guess you could say. I don't have the base done, but just a Storm Bolter, or no, that's a Psi Cannon, I want to say, and a Force Sword. But they like to wear their very, as you can see, pretty simple. They have some skulls, but for the most part, they're just decked out in sweet silver armor with blue swords. Then I have done. This is the extent of my kit bashing. I chopped off one of their arms and attached a sword arm with a head on the end. So
cool. That's always good.
So just a little customization, and then this is my half-built Nemesis Dreadnought.
Sure.
That I'm still working on. But yeah, a lot of Terminators. You can use hammers. You can use staves, halberds. You have, of course, the normal swords. You can also have dual falchions.
Yes, that's cool.
All sorts of stuff. But this is the extent of my army, and this is probably about 1,100 points or so. Like, Grey Knights are very expensive.
Yeah, I think as far as like model counts, when you start building armies, it's third after knights and custodes.
Yeah.
So yes, it's one of those things where like if you were getting into 40K and you wanted to play an army that you didn't have to have a million models like Tyranids or Orcs, this is definitely one of those that you could look at because
exactly. And they do look very, very cool. I still to this day love the look and kind of idea behind the Grey Knights. That they are like this elite of the elite. And yeah, and these are my 5 undecideds.
Sure.
My handless, armorless little boys.
Yeah. One day they'll get. Although, at this point, so Games Workshop has not. They're very coy about which codex is coming at what point. So we have no idea when the Grey Knights will get a 9th edition codex. It'll happen in the next 2 years, but yeah, we don't know when. Because then it becomes the point, the sort of thing where, okay, if you're in the process of building models and you know a codex is coming, do you wait? Do you wait for the codex because things are going to be different than what you would build now? Yeah, no, I certainly get that.
One of the cool things I did, these were thanks to my my good friend Dave. He had actually looked at Grey Knights for a while and opted not to go for them, but he gave me his old Pewter Grey Knights.
Oh, nice.
So I have a couple nice Pewter heavy metal Grey Knights.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the really heavy ones.
Yeah, I love them though. But yeah, those are my Grey boys.
Cool. Yeah, so as Scott was talking about, you have the options for just about all of the Grey Knights that they can have a ranged weapon and a melee weapon, which is not unheard of among the rest of the Space Marines, but at times it can be rarer depending on the specific faction. So yeah, that's super cool. And again, because they're all psychers, they all have access to force weapons.
Yes.
Typically in a Space Marine army, your librarians, your psychers will come with sort of a generic force weapon, and it can be a force sword or a force staff or an axe. Like they have very slightly different rules. But these Grey Knights have Nemesis force weapons. They're not only are they psychic powered weapons, but they're sanctified beyond even that. And yeah, they come in personal sizes, and then for this thing, let's talk about the Nemesis Dreadnought.
Yeah. This is one of the troops that, and kind of like the Land Raider, that got helped in 9th edition, where you could move, shoot, and then move again with these heavy boys. But
so
yeah.
I'm sure you know what people like to call these things.
Baby carriers.
They are the baby carriers. Yep. So it's the idea behind these is that, okay, we all know what dreadnoughts are, right? Dreadnought is when a Space Marine is wounded beyond the ability to save, but there's time enough to get him back to basically the tech acolytes who can install him into a robot body. So this is a sort of an evolution of that, right? It's a robot body, but you don't have to be dead essentially to go into it. You just get strapped to the front. It's arguably a little goofy, sure. It takes that exoskeleton kind of idea and look to a really far extreme. But it's cool. I mean, their arms and their weapons are certainly awesome. I love the pistons on the shoulders, especially.
Yeah.
And there's a lot you can do with building these models.
Yeah,
also, as Scott was
comes
saying,
with the giant two-handed sword. They have a bunch of guns. They come with a giant hammer as well. So it is you can do a lot with these model kits, and they just always look badass.
Yeah, so here's where is it? Yeah, so here's one with the hammer, and you can also, like, the little dude in the middle, you can actually put a helmet on him, so it doesn't look exactly like that. I've seen some people even go so far as to customize these, so there's no little Marine on there at all. Like, they build in a little, like, a torso plate, and then they'll stick some kind of a head on there. So it's like, no, he's just inside. It's like, okay, if you really don't want it to look like this, you can customize it to look like something else. And yeah, as somebody mentioned in chat, like $60 for this is not a bad price.
Yeah,
this is a big model.
It is. It's a good size, and it's pretty beefy.
Yeah. So in addition to, obviously, we saw that Grey Knights use bolters, typically storm bolters. They have, and we've seen, especially for Crow, that they have access to some weapons that they don't usually have. Tiny Chris says, no other company makes you build and paint your own toys to play a game, not to this extent. Yes, this is very much, because it's not just a game, it's a hobby. And there's lots of shame. And there's lots of shame that you could give to people who don't build and paint their things up to your standards. It's part of the thing. But yes, so there are Psi Cannons, and you had at least one of those in your in your models there, right? So a Psi Cannon is what? That's the one that's, and I always get them mixed up because, again, I've never played Grey Knights. The Psi Cannon is it's a bolter, but they're like blessed bolts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that one?
I believe so. Let me.
And then I think that's it. Yeah, and then the Incinerator is a regular Promethium flamer, but it's blessed oil and blessed Promethium.
Right. And I just want to say, I hate Games Workshop for using a very similar cover to 7th and 8th edition, because I can never remember which is which. It's like, 8th is the one with a slight border around it, where 7th edition is full art. It's like, what?
Right.
And I couldn't find anywhere where it says specifically which edition it is.
I've noticed that too. They don't like to write that on there. because you might buy the wrong one and then have to buy another one. I think that's the only reason I can think of why they don't emblazon it on there. Or that it might worry people if it's too prominent. They'd be like, wait, there are different versions. If I buy this one, is it not going to be good in a year? And it's like, well, the secret is yes. It might not be good in a year.
Yes. You will always have to buy new books or slight adjustment codexes, which will replace things or completely change your unit costs. Like, I had to buy a separate book, The Psychic Awakening Ritual of the Damned, specifically to get the correct unit costs for all my Grey Knights because there's no 9th edition codex. So I had to get this book, which has like 3 or 4 pages for Grey Knights to use in addition alongside my 8th edition codex.
Thanks, GW.
Because
you sure know you sure know how to sell books.
I know. It's like they would have no problem making more money with digital versions with a digital version of 40K.
Yeah. I mean, if there was an app that had access to all this stuff that was up to date, that got downloads immediately, we would all pay for that, of course.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
The Grey Knights also have the silencer with a P at the front of it.
Yes, PSI-lencer.
Silencer. And those that we as 40K people, we joke that doing smite and other psychic powers is like mind bullets, but a silencer literally fires mind bullets.
Yeah. This is the description of the silencer weapon from 7th edition because I can't find my 8th edition right now. A silencer fires nothing less than the focused and amplified psychic might of its wielder. Silencers do not have triggering mechanisms. They are activated when the Grey Knight sends a bolt of psychic force into the weapon's containment core. This pulse is then fired as several energy beams that destroys both flesh and soul.
Nice. That's like Chris says.
It's in this Grey Knight going pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, literally. We can have mind bullets, but no boobs in our space marines. Yep, that's a thing. And then the Dreadnought is the exoskeleton baby carrier. Now there are lots of neat names for the different units. We mentioned them briefly, and again, I as a non-Grey Knight player, I can never keep these things straight. So which are the purifiers?
They're the ones with the flame, like the fire, like they burn things.
The incinerators. Okay, that makes sense. Which are then the paladins are the special terminators, right?
I believe so, yes. Paladin squad, the Grey Knights do not believe that we're warriors forged in battle. Rather, if a Grey Knight wishes to prove himself worthy of a place amongst the paladins, bravery and skill are not enough. He must complete 8 quests to establish his character and cause. Only when a battle brother has proven himself to be inviolate of spirit, unflagging of purpose, and utterly untouched by the taint of the warp, will he be accepted into the ranks of the paladins. They are the greatest of Titan's warriors, each one a paragon of skill and virtue, measured only by exacting standards of order to which they belong.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, they're like super holy terminators.
Yeah. Oh, and I like this one down here in the bottom left. He's actually holding a demon head. That's neat. And then so another reason why, or another way that the Grey Knights differ from regular Space Marines is that in a standard Space Marine chapter, a new Space Marine who's just turned into a Space Marine inducted will be a scout, and then when he graduates to full Space Marine status, depending on where they need troops and what kind of special training he's had, they'll assign him to a specific role. And that could be, I mean, there is technically a progression for some of them, but it could be like, okay, you're going to go be an assault, an assault Marine, or you're going to go be a Devastator Marine. And there are different paths around different things. But for Grey Knights, I think that I read that it's pretty linear, that you go up in steps through so you'll be a purifier or the other version of that, and then later on you'll become right. Yeah, exactly. And then later on, you'll become a Terminator, and you'll go through the ranks normally. If you survive, of course.
Right.
Okay, cool. All right, so and then right, Terminators. Okay, so which are the Inceptor squads? Are those the ones with the teleporters?
Yes, they can kind of bamf around the battlefield.
Okay.
They have personal teleporters that look like giant Tesla coils kind of thing sticking out on their backpack.
So why didn't I not find those on the website? Are they not listed right now?
I think they're just part of the Paladin squad. You just get a bunch like on the
It's just optional parts to swap in and
Yeah.
out? Okay. Huh, weird. Yeah, I didn't see those. And then what's the Purgation squad?
I don't know if I have any purgation.
I know it's all these these
It's all
nitty
sorts of
gritty.
words I don't use on a regular basis.
Well, sure, and I'm sure when you actually play these, it's like it. I'm sure, yeah, you don't use all of those terms for the different kinds of squads.
It looks like they wield. They have better options for weaponry.
Okay.
The weaponry wielded by a purgation squad is twice as deadly, 100 times rarer, and 10,000 times more valuable than the more commonplace armaments carried by Space Marine Devastators. Therefore, the members of purgation squads must have displayed an ability. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, they up to 4 of them may take items from the special list.
Okay, so they're Grey Knights Devastators essentially.
Yeah.
Interesting. And yes, if you've been following along with the Space Marines, there's a Grey Knight squad called Interceptors, not to be confused with Space Marine Inceptors. So dumb.
Exactly.
so dumb. Yeah, I don't know what else there's to say about that.
But yeah, just like on the sprues, you'll see this one right here. Come on. But they have the extra little coils things spreading out for their backpack.
Wait, hold on, I want to see. There we go.
So like this one right
here,
you'll see like the extra little antennas. Spurs. Yeah. That just means they can bamf around. So
which is cool. And I know that historically that there were that all of the it used to be that all of the units could deep strike in, but now with 9th edition you have to start with half of your army on the field, so it kind of screwed with some of the tactics, as it were.
Yeah. And they used to have one of the big strategies with Grey Knights. They had a ability which let them like fire through cover where Grey Knights could shoot out and not get shot at. It was like a psyker ability, I want to say, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, those have also been nerfed. They like to smite a lot. That's one of their big things.
Sure.
Especially in 8th edition, but that's been since changed also in 9th edition, so they're not as good with smiting. But since all their units are psychers, they can all still smite. So.
Yeah, because typically in an army you can only use one psychic power once per your psychic phase. But armies like, I think, is it just the Grey Knights and the Thousand Sons where like because everything is a psyker, subsequent units can use the same power, but every time you use it, it's one harder to pull off. So yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah. So earlier I alluded to the fact that historically, Grey Knight players have certain there's a certain type for Grey Knight players. Now I don't know I like I said, I haven't been playing this game long enough. I've only been playing since 7th edition, but there have been times in the history of 40K that Grey Knights have been ultra top tier tournament winning super armies. And it seems like every time they're not that, they're like trash tier. Sadly.
From the bit I've played, that seems very accurate.
Yeah.
It's
and that's not to mean they aren't fun and interesting, just not super competitive, which, not everything can be all the time.
I think the biggest issue is that they're just so expensive. Like each unit is so expensive, so you can't field a large amount of Grey Knights. So when you're going up against like orcs or space marines or any of the other armies that can field a lot more units. Yeah, a Grey Knight squad can probably take down a crap ton of units per round. They don't matter as much as like if those other groups manage to take down 1 or 2 Grey Knights, it hurts a lot more.
Yeah. And then of course you get stuck with just time. Like, yes, if I'm sure that I can eliminate, 2 units every turn, but if my game is only 3 or 4 turns long, I just don't have enough time to, to get that full use out of everything.
Right.
Yeah. So the Grey Knight players that I've known and that I've read about, they tend to be like, they're great people when Grey Knights are at the top, but otherwise they're surly. They're always mad about everything. They hate when other armies get new stuff. So there's a there's a type for some Grey Knight players, not all of them, of course.
It definitely feels like a forgotten army a lot of the times. At least that sounds like, okay, we're getting more. Okay, oh, they mentioned it. Oh, it's just a supplement that's added that we have to replace our old codex for. Okay, I see. You can do anything with us? No, but we're doing new Space Marines. Wow!
Yeah.
How cool is that? Yeah. Space Marines, the popular armies.
Yeah. Well, that's really the problem, right? Because they're Space Marines, so a bunch of new Space Marine stuff will come out, and then they'll refer to Grey Knights, but because they're really pretty removed from being standard Space Marines,
right?
They get their own stuff separately. So yeah.
So it's just like we're waiting. We're waiting in the warp for our day to come, which is incredibly Grey Knight-like. So
right, yeah. But one day,
everybody who has done us dirty will pay.
Right. And obviously because of the Grey Knights they're so focused on so many of their special abilities and their weapons and their powers are about fighting demons and to a slightly lesser extent other psychers. So if you end up on a table fighting Tau or something, like you may just not have the ability to be as flexible to fight something that's just totally different. So what's next for your army? So you've got sort of a good core of infantry and HQs.
I'm looking at. I want to get a Land Raider. I want to invest in a Land Raider. I want to get some actual HQ figures, like the Grandmaster Drago. I want to get one of those. So I've been I recently, about a month ago, I started working again. So I'm like, okay, I want to start kind of building out my actual army and fleshing things out. So when I can play with my friends again, I have kind of a more fleshed out army. But right now, I think my biggest one, I would like to get another Nemesis Dreadnought. I would like a Land Raider and probably Drago. Those are my main ones that I'm aiming to go for.
Yeah, I know there's a tactic that like people use like 3 Dreadnoughts, right? There's something around there. Because hey, if it's cool, then you gotta have 3 of them.
Right. The rule of 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Builder says you can never have enough Dreadnoughts.
It's true. It's true.
So you showed us that really cool Grey Knight with the head on the sword. Have you done much in the way of customization? Do you have things planned that you want to convert your models?
Not so much. I want to just kind of keep working on them, or like kind of expanding. And as I gain more sprues and like sheets of parts that I'm not using, then kind of mess with them. I think what I'll want to do is make more slight alterations to the models that exist, kind of age them a bit. Look, because these are ancient Terminator armors, things like that. So maybe add kind of dents to them just so they look like they've been through battle.
Sure.
I've also started playing around with, because as much as I love Grey Knights, I mean, it's been my one and only army for a number of years. So I'm like, I kind of want to go pick up a Xeno army, like because Grey Knights are so close combat focused. I was like, do I want kind of like an Eldar? Do I want Tau? Something a bit more ranged? So I've kind of been doing early looks at
Okay.
What I would potentially want for a second army, what would be the best course to start that army,
Cool.
like sets and stuff. So, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I just want to get to the point where I can play more 40K because
Sure.
it is a lot of fun. But I feel like I play so infrequently, especially now, that every time I play again, it's like, okay, what do I do again? It's like I know I have to like roll dice and ballistic skill and stuff, but
yeah. I mean, unless you're really doing Tabletop Simulator, like since 9th edition. I mean, 9th edition came out last year. Like very few of us are in a position where we can play enough to really know the rules by heart and get games going fast enough and things like that. I mean, obviously in some places there are tournaments happening and there are parts of the world where things are pretty good. Not here so much, but where you actually can go to your local venue and play. But yeah, it'll be interesting once we're free to move about a little bit more and play and get used to the new rules and everything else. Right, learn all the terrain stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Well, if you ever want to do like a couple hours where we just try and figure out together how to play Warhammer 40K on tabletop,
first, yes, I will say right now, yes, I do definitely want to get that figured out so I can do it. Because and I've heard that, and I know there are people in chat right now who have played on that. But yeah, I've heard that once you get used to it, like games don't take any longer on there than they do in person. I was like, that's awesome. let's do that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask about your any future plans for future armies, which you just talked about. I think to myself, because my main armies are, so I have Emperor's Children, I have generic Space Marines because I'm doing my own custom chapter, I have an Orc army mainly for my son who loves orcs. And I was thinking, like, what if I were to start another army, what would it be? And I guess I am sort of doing demons, and I do have some Death Watch stuff to play with. All right, I have enough other armies to build. I don't need another army. But one day, I don't have any other Xenos other than orcs. Orcs are just fun. Let's see. Have you heard about our Armies on Display project?
I have not.
Okay. So are you familiar with the Games Workshop Armies on Parade event?
I have not. But I'm guessing it's people can send in pictures of the armies they've customized and or painted, and then they'll feature it on their website? Something along those lines?
That's like the ultimate part of it. Yes. The main part of so Games Workshop has this thing called Armies on Parade. And essentially what it is you build your oh
no, okay, it was me. I was just turning off my picture-in-picture and I clicked the wrong one again.
Basically you build your army, you build a you build a display for it, a portable display. You bring it into a store physically, and then you put it next to all the other people's, and they have judges come around and judge you very harshly and look to try to figure out, oh, that's not a Games Workshop piece, you're out, and all sorts of garbage like that. And then they give awards and prizes, and then you can get pictures sent into White Dwarf and all that other stuff.
I don't know. That sounds kind of cool, but also kind of awful at the same time. If you have like super, get out. That's right.
So because of that, and because of the intimidation factor, some people we're sort of joining, a few different communities are joining together to do our own version called Armies on Display, very legally distinct from Armies on Parade. But we're getting together hobbyists, experienced hobbyists, new hobbyists, which is really cool. And we're basically making a program where you get in, you decide, I want to be a part of this. And we're building, painting, basing an army. If you've already started,
cool.
Keep going with that, whatever. And then, we're providing feedback and assistance to people, like basically like project management help, or even, I want to do this, but I have no idea what army to look at. Like, we'll help you with that. So yeah, it's something that's really cool. Usually I have a link to where people can check out our information. I don't have it handy. Maybe I can find that real quick. But yeah, if you're interested, you can get on board with that. It's helping me finally to paint at least one of my armies. Like I said before, I like painting. I'm not terrible at it. I just have issues getting getting into it with like I talked before about planning out exactly how I want everything to look, as well as I just need the time and the energy.
Yeah.
And I need both of them in equal measures. So like I stream just about every weekday at 10 o'clock, but I don't necessarily have the energy to paint at 10 o'clock in the morning every day. But I've been testing, and I've come up because I want my Space Marines to be pink because I love the color pink. And
Excellent.
I've been testing with making my own paints out of pigments. So these are my most recent tests. So I'm getting some really vibrant colors with my pigments. I still need to do some more testing, but that's sort of where I am now. Test models. But yeah, so I'm going to be building out. I mean, I have thousands of Space Marine models, but I'm building new stuff. And I'm going to paint them and do it as part of this project. But yeah, it should be cool.
That sounds very cool.
And like I said, we have several different communities that are joining in on this, which is really fun. And then and at the end, we're going to have like judging and prizes, but it's all just for fun. It's not like there's certainly not going to be any pressure. Here is, so for any of you who are watching who thinks that might sound interesting, here is a link. Yeah, and obviously on the Home Buddies Discord, you can talk to me and get in touch with, but that link should get you to the right place. So anyway, right now we just have a Google sign up. We're not going to spam you. It's just to basically keep track of who's interested and who's getting involved.
That's super.
So Scott, tell us where on the internet we can find you and all of the cool stuff that you do.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at SolidSnake120. You can also find my podcast, RPG University, on all your preferred podcast services. So like Apple iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, all of that. We're about 43 episodes right now, so it's a lot of fun. You can find me writing things and reviewing games over on irrationalpassions.com. You can also find me streaming on Twitch, usually RPGs, over at twitch.tv/SolidSnake120. Right now I'm playing through Megami Tensei 2, not Shin Megami Tensei. This is pre-Shin Megami Tensei time frame. So doing that, and yeah, that's what I do.
What's your favorite game that came out recently?
I have been putting a lot of time into Bravely Default 2. Because I am a big fan of turn-based RPGs, and really Bravely Default is the closest thing to like the old school Final Fantasies that are out there.
Okay.
And I love job systems, but that and Dungeons and Dragons. I play D&D twice a week, once as a player, once as a DM. I absolutely love it, and honestly, 5th edition or D&D is what kept me sane during the year of pandemic. Being able to have something to look forward to, playing on Roll20 with my friends. I absolutely loved it. We recently started the previous DM wanted to take a break, so we're switching over to a new DM a couple weeks ago, and I've been absolutely loving my brand new gnome barbarian berserker named Theodore Pendleton Tricklefoot.
Okay, that's cool.
Absolutely fantastic. I got the okay from my DM to let me wield a greatsword, even though he is a gnome that he conveniently keeps in a bag of holding. So
perfect.
He doesn't have to carry on his back. But no, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, those are the main things I've been playing lately.
Cool. I've been introducing my 6-year-old to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. We haven't played yet, but just going through the book, showing him all the artwork, talking about character creation. He has an idea of what does he want? He wants to be a dragonborn wizard. And I was like, cool, let's roll it up. Let's get this thing going.
There's a really good kind of like introductory kids version of D&D books that I got for Christmas. One of my friends, bless her heart, she knew I liked Dungeons and Dragons, so she got me this book set. But it's definitely not for like full D&D play sessions, but it's great for kids. So like when my nephews get older, I can't wait to play with them and introduce. But
that's great.
I'll be sure to send you that link because I think that would be perfect.
Yeah, cool.
As well.
So you said you've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for a while, right?
Yeah, I got started with 3.5 edition.
Sure.
I've probably been playing about close to 10 years now, 10, 15.
Okay.
But yeah, probably about 10, 15 years now, D&D. So
Okay. Honest answer.
shoot.
How do you feel about fourth edition?
We never really played 4th edition.
Okay.
I have
You
a
like
couple
you
of
were
the
just doing
books.
3.5.
We pretty much stuck with just 3.5.
Okay.
I have a couple of the players handbooks and stuff for
Sure.
4th edition, but my group never really got into 4th edition.
Okay.
We stuck with 3.5 and 5, so I really don't have much
Okay.
input.
All right. Just wondering.
Yeah.
I liked fourth edition. I know I'm in the extreme minority. Like, I have to watch out for tomatoes being thrown at me when I say that. But yeah, there was some cool stuff in fourth edition. I was actually thinking of maybe having my son start with that rather than fifth edition, just because there are. It's yeah. I mean, people describe it as it's more tactical, but yes, I mean, basically, you get essentially every class gets abilities that are like powers, and there's some that you can do, every turn. There's some you can only do once per battle. There's some you can only do once per day. But the way they lay it out, it's like really easy to tell. Like green ones, I can do as many as I want. Red ones, I can only do whatever, and you can make them as cards. So you basically turn them in when you use them. I think that's cool. I think there were some really good aspects about fourth that people just didn't give it a chance enough to appreciate.
Now, Scott, I have something to ask you. With your plethora of figures and stuff displayed, are you familiar with Mechatop?
Mechatop. It sounds familiar, but I don't know. No.
It was a Kickstarter, but now it's coming out. But it basically allows you to play a tabletop war game with model kits or mecha figures and stuff.
Okay.
And it just with all your figures and whatnot, I feel like
sure,
something up your alley.
Okay, yeah, no, I have seen this. Yeah, I didn't get on the Kickstarter, but I saw something about it. Yeah, I am fascinated by these games that are essentially like, here's a rule system, get your own models, assign stats and abilities to it, and go. Also, like Gaslands, like that. Yeah. Obviously, for toy cars, we have the book. We haven't actually played it yet because that's something that my son and I have been talking about. But yeah, no, I'll definitely add that to my list. Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'm part of the Discord and everything, and people have made the custom stat cards for so many different mechas and things. But
sure, yeah, I can only imagine. Yes, I have a fair amount of robots and things around.
A few things, yeah.
Yeah, I should get into that. Cool.
Yeah.
Neat. Let's see. Drago is the best character ever, Builder S says. Okay. I mean, he certainly seems cool. Very powerful.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think that's all I have to talk about today. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. This was great.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Love sharing the word of the Grey Knights and everything. And
yeah,
just nerding out.
Yeah, I was really excited about that because, like I said, I know a bit about Grey Knights, but I learned more doing research, so I'd be prepared to talk today. And I'm always happy to learn more about things that I don't know. All right, let me just check and see who is online right now, and we'll figure out somebody to raid because we like raiding our friends.
Heck yes.
Let's see. Let me just do this real quick. Okay, that should work. For those of you who are fans of the Home Buddies, remember that tonight, of course, is the Home Buddies group stream. It will be on Cameron Rice's channel at 7 p.m. Pacific. I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing. There was a plan, but we'll see what happens. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's some things that are working behind the scenes, but yes, we should all be there and doing that. Okay. I am starting the raid. We are going to raid our good friend Emily Wolf. She usually does cool artwork using fire, so watch out for that. Yeah. Otherwise, again, Scott, thank you so much. Everybody go follow him and all the things. Mostly, so you're Solid Snake 120 on
Twitch and Twitter. Yep.
Okay, cool. So, and I'm sure from there they can get all the links to all of the other neat stuff that you do.
And then it's just RPG University. Just search that and you'll get links to Apple, iTunes, and Spotify and everything for that. So the podcast.
All right, cool. All right, everybody, I hope to see you at 7 p.m. tonight over on Cameron Rice's channel. Otherwise, I'll be back on Monday with mythology something on Monday. Haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, all right, bye, everybody. Go say hi to Emily. Raid is going and broadcast.